going independent. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit more when it comes to branding. Anthony, how does that make you feel?
I feel branded.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live.
That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's Anthony Melchiori. I'm Glenn Hausman. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Whether you're out for a jog or not working at your desk. Hey, thanks. How's it going over there, Anthony?
Wonderful. How are you, sir?
I'm feeling pretty good because, yesterday we had on a great guest. We had on Saxton Sherrard, and he was from Revival Hotels, and he talked all about his passion as a management company for the independent hotel scene. And today we're kind of going the other way. We're finding someone who's equally passionate about branded hotels out there. What do you think?
I think we should be branded.
I think so too. But listen, what I really like about that is it just shows how incredible this business is. It's so versatile. It's so interesting that no matter what your passion is, you can find success going down that road. And today we have with us Mr. Chris Manley. He is co-founder and president of Five Senses Hospitality and Management Company. He chose to start the very opportune time of July 2020. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing great. If I was any better, I'd be you, Glenn. That's how good I am today.
Well, it turns out that today we're both at the same hotel, although mine is a digital representation of the AC Frisco, Colorado, and you're really there. I'm a little bit jealous.
I am. It's a great day here in Summit County. I'm literally minutes from Vail, Breckenridge, Keystone, Copper Mountain, and A Basin, and the lobby is empty because we got 4 or 5 inches of fresh powder last night. So all of our guests are on the slopes, and I am not.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of nice that it's quiet over there. So you could give us your full attention this afternoon. So, curious as to, yesterday we were talking about the independent hotels. Today we want to talk to you about, and just before we went in there, you said you're exclusively branded hotels. As somebody who created their own management company nearly 4 years ago, why go in that specific direction? And how does that feel that helps you be more successful in your business?
It's a great question. We made the conscious decision to focus on branded hotels and really Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt in a large regard for a couple of reasons. On the operations side, I love the brand contribution. I looked at some stats the other day. In 2023, 48% of our room nights came from brand.com, which means they came free of commission, direct channels, they stay longer, and they're apt to spend more money.
Right.
And that actually allowed us to lower our OTA contribution to 13% of all of our room nights. So because we're getting so much through brand.com, we don't have to have as much a dependence on the online travel agencies. Those are a critical part of our revenue strategy, but I want them in my need periods, not necessarily on weekends in the middle of the winter in Summit County or other peak periods. Right. The other thing I'd say about the branded environment is when you're going out to raise equity, financing of a branded hotel in many times is a lot easier. And on the exit, if and when you ever decide to sell, they have a tendency to trade it as quite a bit lower cap rate.
Exactly. It looks like they had a busy breakfast service this morning.
they did. Yeah, we're just cleaning up from our guests.
Yeah. Well, it's nice. They're all out skiing. Anthony, it looked like you were about to say something.
I'd like them to go skiing, please. Double diamonds only.
I love it.
Yeah. So, all right. So you're getting about half of your business right from brand.com, right? That's pretty impressive. And that's pretty much in line with numbers that I've heard. So what are you thinking about in terms of your strategy when it comes to filling up the other 50% of rooms?
That's a great question. Interestingly, we've, as a company, spent a lot more time talking about segmentation in the last 12 months than we have coming out of COVID. Mm-hmm. Coming out of COVID, there was no segmentation because it was all leisure. And there was no group, there was no government, there was no business travel. And I think in industry as a whole, we kind of lost our focus on what segments are appropriate when to build your base. And this year, we've really made a pivot to make a conscious effort of when do we want government, when do we want group, when do we want SMERF, when do we want retail, when we went
Right.
special corporate. And I think that's an important part of any revenue strategy, but it's going to be more so going forward because the abundance of leisure and transient will continue to dissipate. It's not going to go away by any stretch of imagination, but we're not going to have it like we had coming out of COVID. And you're going to need more special corporate. You're going to need more group, especially in slower periods where you want to build a base so that, when demand is present in the marketplace, you can really push rates on the retail side.
Right. So that's really fascinating to me. And as we know, our friends at Nolan have talked about how the meetings business has been rising and rising and rising. The smaller meetings that you're going to be appealing to, you're starting to see more people attend them, and they're mixing the meetings with some sort of more leisure elements. And you've got hotels like this one that you're at, I'm not at right now, really play into that whole strategy. So that makes a whole lot of sense. You had also talked about the financing side of it. That's really interesting. And that's, I think, a real truism here in the hospitality industry. You have to have certain brand names on the door for the bankers to go, here, have some at a lower cost of capital and lower money in, right?
Absolutely. Frankly, many of our hotels, if I didn't have a brand, I'm not sure that I could finance them. And if I did, it would probably be at 100 or 200 basis points or 1 or 2 points higher interest rates. So it'd start to make less economic sense. But the banks gain a certain comfort when you're affiliated with a major brand for obvious reasons, because they know the guests, they're going to be able to deliver guests every night.
Right.
It's almost impossible to get financing without a brand today, unless you just have a tremendous relationship and you're bringing 70 cents on a dollar.
And a big personal guarantee next to it.
Right.
Right.
And you have to deliver your firstborn child before you sign.
Right. Now, we have a question over here, and I think I can guess the answer. Hey, he said you focus on branded, but I'm looking at their folio and see quite a few independent hotels. I have a feeling they're hotels that haven't opened that you haven't announced brand affiliation with yet. Would that be accurate?
They're actually soft brands.
Right.
They're affiliated with, in this case, we've got one Tapestry open, which is on Hilton's brands, another one outside of Aspen that we're going to open at the end of this month, and one under construction, also a Tapestry in downtown Fort Worth. So they're affiliated with a Hilton, but to the guest, they're the Nobleman or the Waters, and that creates a real unique environment. And we're a big proponent of the soft brands. I think it's a nice mesh of independent, but you still get a lot of the brand contribution. By being affiliated with the major brand families.
And that seems to be the way that a lot of people are moving. And yesterday I had asked our guests, and I encourage everybody to go and download or view that show as well, about that mix, about how people say they want to stay at independent hotels, but a lot of times the natural reset is to go to brands. And that's why this soft brand category kind of gives people the chance to step out of their comfort zone while firmly remaining in their comfort zone. Right, Chris?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you really get a lot of latitude in the soft branded environment on the decor, the operations, the F&B outlets, et cetera, that you wouldn't have in a hard brand environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So what the heck were you thinking, man? July 2020, you're like, I'm going to go and start this company. I mean, nothing was happening on the negative side, but on the positive side, nothing was happening.
Yeah. Well,
right?
It's an interesting, my business partner and co-founder in Dallas, we had started talking months before the pandemic, and we had a fairly simple thesis: is we could go buy select serve and extended stay product at an 8 or 9 cap, put debt on it at 4%, deliver a 12% or so return to the investor base. And that should be pretty easy, and just wash, rinse, repeat. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and we kind of put a cold towel on our head and said, okay, this is either the greatest time in the world,
right,
or absolutely the worst time in the world. And that's kind of how the discussion went with my wife. And she still thinks I should have my head examined periodically, but subsequent to that, it's been exhilarating. It's been fun. And I think there's a real niche for smaller management companies, with all due respect to the behemoths in there. There are too many, and some of the, whether we've, inherited a management contract or bought the property, there's so many owners out there that don't want to be one of 1,000.
Right.
And they want to have personal direct involvement from the principals of the management company. and we've had great success. And because of our size, we can pick and choose which ownership groups we want to work with that are committed to running good hotels and reinvesting capital where necessary in the product. And we've been great. And so far, we've grown it to 13 properties, 1,300 guest rooms, and what the stat I'm most proud of is almost 400 employees. And
Wow.
that's really, really exciting.
All right. So you're sitting there, it's day one, you got no business going on. How the heck do you start creating momentum for yourself? And emotionally, how do you keep positive during that period?
Really, really good, really great questions. We were very fortunate in my business partner had 3 hotels that were third-party managed that we knew we could transition in-house, and that gave us a foothold. That gave us a little bit of revenue coming in and a place to start. And without that, it would have been a yeoman's effort. But that gave us a little bit of base, and then we just started growing from there. And we've acquired some properties. We've added some third-party contracts. Interestingly, the advice we got going into it from some fairly senior people was it would be impossible to hire.
Right.
Because we didn't have growth prospects. And we found that to be absolute, to the contrary. And
Right.
What's happening in our industry is, really talented GM joins a big management company and they say, here's my career progression. And I want to do X, Y, and Z. And that regional that's hiring him promises perfect. And that regional has traded. There are 3 regionals down the road. Those career discussions are gone, and they feel like they're lost.
Right.
And so we've been fortunate to add some really talented general managers that where we can focus on growing their career, knowing where they need help, where they have opportunity, what they want to accomplish, and really refocus on their career that they weren't getting at some of these larger shops.
Right. And also, anecdotally, I've noticed from the LinkedIn universe that a lot of people are leaving some of these larger companies. No, nothing against these larger companies. They serve a great purpose for specific people. But sometimes you get to a point in one of those organizations where you kind of miss doing what you're doing, more hands-on and stuff. And I'm seeing a lot of folks that go up there, they get trained and stuff. They feel really good about it. But when they need that next challenge, then they go somewhere and they create their own organization, or they start working with some of these smaller firms that are out there.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we're small enough where we get together in a room, same room, once a month and go through financials and of every property, and every general manager presents what worked, what didn't, and they trade ideas for whether it's breakfast costs, whether it's labor, whether it's overtime. A lot of times I just sit back and listen because there's some great ideas going around with really true professionals in the industry.
So when you think about great ideas, what are some that you've come across recently?
I tell you, probably the biggest thing since the pandemic that's point of discussion is breakfast. In many of our hotels, we have a complimentary breakfast, and what to serve, how to serve it, what's it cost, how much to put out. Coming out of the pandemic, everything was pre-wrapped. It was great, but it was very expensive, and we found a lot of guests went shopping, and they would get their lunch, and all of a sudden so that didn't work. All of a sudden, where breakfast traditionally was $3 to $3.50 per occupied room, shot up to $6. Well, that's not going to work long term. So trying to find the happy medium, it's one of the most important things we deliver to the guests, and it creates a lot of value, but it's got to be warm. It's got to be fresh. It's got to be pleasant. And sitting in a plastic Schaefer disc that's wrapped doesn't accomplish any of that.
Right. Hey, Anthony, you got some sort of reverb now going on.
How about now?
All right, go for it.
Is this good?
Yeah.
That seems to be the billion-dollar question that everybody wrestles with every day. And there's all kinds of schools of thought, but you had the most articulate school of thought that it has to be affordable, but it can't be mediocre. And I don't know if anybody's ever solved that problem, was ever going to solve the problem.
Your breakfast and the breakfast scores probably has the most influence on your overall guest scores of anything you do. I mean, besides, hot water and internet and clean bed, your breakfast, you can really either move the needle positively or be a big detractor. And we've done both. And it's easier said than done, but it's critical.
Yeah, it's the most important moment because there's not as many contact points as there used to be. There's, we're taking services away little by little. And it's the way I start my day. And, I have a different diet than other people, and they have a different diet than me. And if I can't find my egg white, if I can't find my turkey bacon, or I can't find my oatmeal, that's a problem for me. I can't eat regular eggs. I can't eat and I'm not eating a donut, and I'm not eating a bagel. So I need it simple. But then when I'm on the weekend, if I'm traveling with my kids or my wife, then I want maybe all of that. So, but it's expensive. It's very expensive. $3.50 is what I remember paying 20 years ago. So, and $6, people are like, well, $6, if you're paying $200 for a room, it's not a lot, but that's $6.
It adds up.
Okay. Plus everything else, it adds up. And plus, like you said, how do we prevent the shopping?
Yeah. That's a big issue.
Yeah. Suzanne, our producer, said, how do we feel about service charges for breakfast? Listen, people are done with service charges and resort fees. And the person that started resort fees is not a very nice person anymore. So
Nope.
It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem, especially now they're catching on to parking fees and breathing fees and heartbeat fees and all that kind of stuff. But that's a talk for another day. Chris, I really like when the breakfast is, doesn't have any wrapping to it. I like my stuff fresh. But the one mystery that no one seems to be able to figure out is how to deliver a banana that's not green or rotted brown. I'd love something in between along with my cup of coffee, and that would make me happy.
If we could figure that out, we'd be geniuses, because that is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah. So you're in really cool locations with your hotels. Hot Springs, Arkansas, Fort Worth, Texas. You got a property coming. Multiple places in Colorado. What is the pool of professionals like over there that are interested in either entering hospitality or want to continue to pursue a career in hospitality?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We've been in markets that have had substantial RevPAR growth coming out of COVID. We're actually at the point where it's been a year since we've done any comparisons against 2019.
Right.
We know we're fortunate. Not every market is like that, but the markets we're in, COVID's in the rearview mirror, and we're well past that top line. So
yeah, same here on our show. Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how do you attract and retain, really talented team members? And it's tough, and you got to be uber focused on their career. And when I say that, not every GM wants to go from a select serve to a full serve to above property.
Right.
Some of them are content where they are. Some of them are waiting for, kids to graduate from high school before they'll take a different career. So you need to ask the questions, be cognizant, whether it's a GM or DOS, what are they there for? If they're there to provide for their family until the kids are out of college, great. We can solve that. If they want to move up the chain, we can work with that too. But I think asking the questions and having really important touch points on a regular basis is, we know all of our GMs and DOS and leadership very well. We know what their strengths are.
Yeah.
We also know where they're not strong. And how do I sit down? I'm thinking one in particular, really talented individual, fairly new to the GM role, needs help on financials. So we spend a lot of time on the financials of knowing, okay, if X happens, what's likely to happen for Y on the P&L. If I get a big group, but it's intermediated, I got to be thoughtful that I'm going to have a big commission coming on, and the pros and cons of that, and really educating them on the financial statements is critical. So that, to me, that's how we recruit, is being very thoughtful of what our individuals want to do in their career, and how do we get them to where they want to be.
Totally, Chris. It sounds to me like last week I was speaking at another management company, and I did a keynote speech, and we were talking about a lot of these things, or I was, since it was a speech. One of the things I was preaching was the stay interview, and I don't hear enough people talking about that. It sounds to me like that's exactly what you're talking about here, either formal or informally.
You're right. It's a great concept. We do it informally, but those conversations have to happen on a regular basis, because otherwise you lose touch. And the other thing I'd say is you really need to know your team members. I mean, I looked across our portfolio the other day. So we skew 400 odd employees. We skew really strongly female. We've got 63% are female versus U.S. workforce of 57%. Their median age is 35 versus the median age in the U.S. workforce of 42.
Right.
And over a third of our team members are under 30. And why we think about that is, what does that mean for benefits?
Right.
How do we structure stuff that's meaningful to them?
Hmm.
I love our 401k program. Our 401k program is great. But the reality is, with a third of our workforce under 30,
They're not even thinking about it.
they don't care about it. So
Right.
how do we craft benefits that make it meaningful to them? We implemented something early on, and a lot of our peers do the same thing, which allow access between pay periods for earned wages. And so you can work today, get your wages tomorrow, even if it's between pay periods. For the ones that actively use it, they're pulling out money on an average of 2 times per month, and an average withdrawal of $95. But that allows us to, while we're not competing with the gig economy, it's very similar to how a gig economy works. You drive Uber tonight, you get paid tomorrow.
Right.
I want to make it seamless. If rent is due on the 1st and my pay period is until the 5th, I don't want a team member having to pay a late fee
Totally.
because they're waiting for me to pay them when they've already earned those wages. So we need to give them a vehicle to get those wages.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'm laughing over here because I remember when I was had my first apartment in Manhattan back in the 1990s, like going through the change on the 31st because you had no cash and you're hoping to get a couple of slices of pizza and a beer, So it'd be nice to be able to tap into that if you only need a few dollars for this or that, and you could live a more fluid lifestyle that way. That's pretty cool. Susanna's saying, why don't they care around about the 401ks? I would think, number one, their brains aren't fully developed yet. They don't have any sense that they're going to get old and need that sort of thing. And I'm just going on the idiot that I was back at that age. And every dollar wants to be converted into immediate fun and experience, and not some sort of amorphous thing 40, 50 years down the line. That'd be my guess on that. Young people, chime in.
I think you're exactly right. I would love for them to be more invested in a 401k.
Yeah.
More apt to participate in health insurance. But when you're 25, retirement's a long way away, and you're somewhat invincible from a health standpoint, and they
Totally
just don't take advantage of it the way that I think they should. But they can make their own choices.
I didn't even think injury or death was a possibility until I was like 30 or something like that. I was a dummy dumb. Kamal Ahmed is saying, hey, Chris, have you added any additional front of house staff since COVID? If so, what has really been the return on ROI?
We have not added any additional front of house staff. We're staffing very similar to what we used to. Everyone, I'm dating myself a little bit, but when mobile keys started coming out, everyone got excited because they thought it would reduce front of house staffing requirements. We haven't seen that. We've seen good adoption for mobile key, but nothing that will allow us to reduce staff.
I'm a big proponent of that. You shouldn't reduce staff in that particular instance because you can convert those people into brand and hotel ambassadors, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Where we reduced staff coming out of COVID and it put it on is, when we weren't doing daily housekeeping, that actually, allowed a lot of us to survive because there wasn't staff available to hire, and it helped quite a bit. Now, most brands have gravitated towards more of a daily, if anything, just a light touch. I wish from a sustainability effort that weren't the case, because we're trying to do everything we can to incent guests at the front desk to make a green choice and to opt out, because it seems dumb to be washing all these linens and terries every single day when we don't do it at our house.
Are there anywhere you're using AI right now?
We are not. We spend a lot of time talking about it. And I think there's some real opportunities. And in fact, a mutual friend of Glenn and I's we've been talking to about, in the revenue management world, we think there's opportunity. I think for a management company, back of house is accounting, which is a pain point for almost every management company I talk to, of how do you do it accurately, promptly. And there's a lot of accounting. I'm an accountant by education, so I'm not disparaging accountants. But I think there's a lot of opportunities within AI to simplify the accounting process, whether it's bank recs or daily recons and such. And I think there's some real opportunities with AI in that regard, and in revenue management.
Have you seen anybody using it right yet? Any other companies? Me either.
No, we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about it. and nothing seems to happen.
And I think,
Politics.
in my opinion, when it comes to all sorts of new technologies, once people stop talking about it, that's actually when it becomes effective, So we have all of these conversations about how we fantasize how it's going to be. But when you actually go to the brass tacks and are actually using it, then it's no longer conversation worthy because it's integrated itself into our lives over there. So that's my little tip. If people are talking about it too much, it's too early to worry about it. Yeah, Anthony?
I think it's eventually going to find its way naturally into our company, into our organizations. And I think it's going to come through what you just said, accounting, revenue management, sales, things like that. But we make way too many mistakes with technology. And I think we have a great history of making a lot of mistakes with bringing in technology too quick. And either it's not the right technology, or we don't know how to use it, or we don't train people how to use it. So, and whatever we do with AI, it's going to be expensive. So we got to be, like you said, I think over talking it right now is probably not a bad idea.
Yeah. You guys hit on this on the show yesterday, but I think less effort on AI and more on just a PMS system that is really easy to use. And I mean, we spend an inordinate amount of time training the front desk agents on how to use a PMS system, and it should be intuitive. It should be as intuitive as your iPhone.
I was at a hotel and I was behind the front desk. A new young lady started, and I was looking at their PMS system that they use, and I literally, I was like, oh my God, it was DOS. I'm dead serious, and it was a brand.
Not good.
It was a brand, and it was a DOS system, and I almost fell off my feet. I did fall off my feet. I was like, what? It was like Sanford & Son. Oh my God, I'm having a heart attack.
I think I know the system. I think I know the system you're talking about. But for us to expect a digital native, 25 years old to come in and work and operate in the DOS environment,
right?
I mean,
they don't know what DOS is.
No.
It's almost so old that it may be cool to them. Like, wow, this is cool. Is this new? Is this the new latest technology?
Put it on a retro t-shirt.
And I didn't realize that company still had that system. And everybody looked at me like I had three heads. It's like, yeah. I was like, what?
Brian, we see your comment, but I'm not going to post it because we don't want to call any companies out over here. But hey, if we do, check out my friends over at SkyTouch. It's all SkyTouch because it's cloud-based PMS. So thanks to them for trying to make things a little bit simple. But Chris, how else are you thinking about making lives easier, but this time for your customers? One of the coolest interviews that we did over the last year came out with the quote of the best customer service is not having to deliver customer service. The whole thing of removing friction from the process and making it work. How are you thinking that particular issue through in order to let guests control their interactions with the brands as opposed to being forced to interact with brands and people?
I love it. I think there's some real opportunity there, and frictionless is the key. There's times, if I'm, traveling with my family on vacation, maybe I want to have an interaction with the front desk and pick and choose a room and whether or not I want an upgrade. If I'm traveling for business, I want to go straight to my room. I may not want to talk to anyone. It's nothing personal. I just want to have a clean room, a nice bed, a warm shower, and get on with my work. So I think there's tremendous opportunity within the industry to make it less transactional. I mean, I'm not one to compliment the airlines, but what the airlines are great at is I can get through security, I can get on the plane, and my first interaction is at 30,000 feet when they ask me if I want a cup of coffee or not. Yet I'm into a hotel, and the first thing we ask is, can I see an ID and proof of payment, as if they weren't qualified to stay here. We're somehow vetting them, and it's the antithesis of the business we're in, which is the hospitality business.
Yep.
I was on with somebody yesterday, a customer service person, and I'm waiting for them to. It had to do with banking, and I was waiting for them to ask me for all my information to prove it was me. And they're getting a little long in the tooth, and I'm like, "I'm sorry, can we stop? Can you please make sure that I'm the guy I say I am?" She goes, "We've already authenticated your voice." Because now, so you have to sign up, and I remembered I signed up for it, and we did this little thing. and they authenticated my voice, and went with my voice, and I was like, oh, okay,
Love it.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Unless it was somebody in a third world country that just took all my money.
Yeah, and that's coming. There's a case out there right now about some fake voice political related robocalls and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But I don't know if I mentioned this on air, Chris, but I just recently had a flight with my airline of choice, and I've got this new digital ID. And when I go up to the counter to check in, it goes bloop, and it already knows who I am, and I don't have to take out my ID. Combining that with Clear is pretty cool. Soon they're going to have that digital ID at the gate for all flights too. It's going to be pretty seamless there, and that's kind of fun, kind of seeing that friction being removed just a little bit more from the process. And I'm excited to see more kinds of cool things like that in hotels, I think.
I think that's great. Can you imagine if you just walk into a hotel and they say, Glenn, welcome back. And, the PMS is smart to say, oh, by the way, how was your trip to Columbus last week?
Right.
And you're in room number 430 because we know that's the room you love.
All right. So let me ask you this question. How do you get to that point? Because I was also complaining about a hotel that I've stayed at 5 times because it's near one of my son's schools, and they still don't know that I've stayed there before. Right. So how are you enacting positivity through knowing who's coming through the door?
There are 2 primary ways. I mean, the technology's got to get better in terms of knowing our customer.
Right.
And we should know it as well as, Amazon knows us, et cetera. And the other thing is continuity at the front desk, and really having a good welcome experience where if you've been there 5 times, I'd hope the individual working that shift would recognize you, but they may not know your name.
They may not. But at that time you recognize faces sort of, but I don't really rely on the human being at anymore because that's unfair. There's got to be some sort of electronic prompt or something.
Well, and the old trick in the front desk is it's always welcome back. Now, they may never have been there, but they don't know. You don't know that
but again, it's pretty simple with the system to say when it pops up, it's like 3rd time guest has been here, 5th time the guest has been here. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, and we don't get the simple things right, and it's insane.
No, we certainly.
I'm not saying your hotels. I'm saying in general.
I couldn't agree more. But if they're a repeat guest, it should pop up big red letters. I'm still not a Bonvoy member, and because when I stay at the hotels, I've been asked maybe 3 or 4 times. I will tell you I stayed at none, and I always say no. But if they were, I probably would say yes if I got asked every time, just so I don't have to do it anymore. But there's another brand that they asked me 37 times every time I'm there, and eventually I relented and I became a member. So it's about training, and it's about, repetition. And there's some things that are very, very simple. It's okay if you can't do things in the system that are perfect, or you're a little unsure yourself. But the welcome back and have a nice stay and excuse me, let me get my supervisor because I'm having problems with the technology. It's very simple, but that they're not taught that, they get overwhelmed and they don't talk. They just look, and then they're just getting upset because like, just say something. Tell me what's going on. How many times I peer over and I'm like, what's going on over here? Sometimes you want to help them. Like I can work that PMS for you.
All right. So, Anthony, you really should be collecting those points. It couldn't hurt, or at least the nights. So that way, when you achieve diamond status, the people behind the front desk will not still give you the water unless you ask for it.
But yeah, I haven't. And there's a really good reason I haven't.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Hey, I got a good swift kick in the head many years ago, and that urged me to sign up with one particular airline, and it's been very helpful over the years.
Yeah, Delta, I'm definitely it's very helpful because I see effort. Like when I sign up, like I get stuff. With a lot of these hotel brands, you don't get a lot of stuff.
No, but still, I'm signed up for all of them anyway because the thought on missing out on a point or two, just hurts me so much. Chris, before we wrap up today, last question I have for you, sir, is what are you in your business as a professional most think is your best? That's the worst sentence. What is your best opportunity this year? Do you believe?
We kind of tailor to business. The operation side of our business really is going extremely well. We're seeing good top line growth. Wage pressure has mitigated to a large extent. So now it's really about maintaining margins and growing margins. You got some headwinds. As wages increase, insurance is a huge headwind. For me and a lot of my peers, property taxes. So the operations side, I wouldn't say I'm relaxed, but I'm optimistic that it's going to be an uneventful year. Where I think the real opportunity comes is on the investment and growth side. Development is challenging in just about every market because of where construction costs are. So I think you'll see a lot more brand conversions or acquiring below replacement cost and maybe repositioning, maybe putting a new brand in that.
That reminds me. Sorry, I should have mentioned this. This AC was supposed to be another brand in not a lower segment, but a segment that doesn't have as much ADR to it, right?
So when we first sourced this, it was shut down for COVID. It was an older brand, and the ownership group, the family that owned it, had envisioned converting to brand A. And we took a look at it, and we knew real early on that we were going to spend more in the renovation than we actually did to acquire the asset, which I don't think I've ever done.
Wow.
In my life. But
either you got a really good deal on the asset, or you made a lot of poor renovation choices.
I'm hoping it's the former and not the latter. But when we looked at the brand universe of what brands were available, this happens to be an AC by Marriott. We knew that with what we were doing for the renovation, that we needed a brand that had a lot more price elasticity on the ADR to produce a good investment, and it's working exactly as intended. And so that's been exciting. The other thing I want to touch on, kudos to the local team here. This is in Summit County, Colorado, but when we did the renovation, like many small communities, the landfill here is close to capacity. So everyone's very sensitive to, when we start renovations as hoteliers, too many times we're throwing out mattresses and just kind of not doing the right thing from a sustainability standpoint. So we partnered with a group that did some amazing things when we were doing the demolition. And I'm proud that we recycled 75 mattresses, took them back down to Denver, broke them apart, and took the pieces and recycled the parts. And we recycled 15,000 pounds of scrap metal.
Wow.
Which is just amazing. So that never made it in the landfill. And then we also worked with this group where we donated 20 sleeper sofas, 60 different fridges or microwaves to the local community and that was really cool. We didn't do it for publicity. We did it because it's the right thing to do. But too many times as hoteliers, when we go in to do a big renovation, all this stuff ends up in a landfill. And that's absolutely the wrong thing long term. So I challenge everyone, if they're getting ready to go into a big renovation, be thoughtful about what happens to the stuff you're demoing out of a hotel room.
Awesome. Love it. Chris, how about a good plug for your organization, Five Senses Hospitality?
If you're in Colorado, Kansas, and Arkansas and looking to grow your hospitality career, we'd love to talk to you. You're welcome to reach out to me directly, 720-702-1959, or our website is fivesenseshospitality.com. We'd love to talk to you, help you grow your career. And if you're a guest, come stay with us. We run really good hotels, and we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being here. And do me a favor, hang out backstage for a second. All right. Would you? Thanks so much. I want to thank all of you guys for being here. And I know you're going to want to re-listen to this show. So why not subscribe to our podcast feed? Get that wherever you get your podcasts. Also, all shows are housed at novacancynews.com. If you want to go back and watch us in the future. Thanks so much for being here. Tomorrow, we got the president of Seabourn Cruises. I love that they've got smaller ships and they're doing lots of fun trips over there. And that's going to be cool, right, Anthony?
I love small ships.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, you got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you tomorrow.